Good afternoon. My name is Marika Schroeder, bringing you the latest global developments. US President Donald Trump concluded what he referred to as a very good meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office on Tuesday. In a closed-door meeting, the two leaders discussed a range of important subjects, with US Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt referring to the conversation as positive and productive, and to the disappointment of critics attempting to sow division. In an interview with Sean Hannity following his sit-down with the president, Prime Minister Netanyahu noted that he and President Trump see eye to eye regarding Iran, noting a common resolve that the regime cannot get a nuclear weapon.
סיימתי עכשיו פגישה מצוינת עם הנשיא טראמפ. כשאני אומר מצוינת, זה לא מן השפה אל החוץ. שיחה עם שותפות מלאה, עם תמיכה הדדית, עם הבנה על היעד המשותף להבטיח שלאיראן לא יהיה נשק גרעיני, וגם יעדים אחרים. אחת השיחות הטובות ביותר שקיימתי עם נשיא ארצות הברית, ידידנו דונלד טראמפ. היה שם גם כל הצוות הבכיר שלו, הצוות הבכיר שלנו, וגם כאן הייתה הזדמנות להחליף רעיונות וגם לתאם תאומים שהם חשובים לביטחון ולעתיד של מדינת ישראל. אני מכאן הולך יחד עם רעייתי שרה לטקס ההשכבה של ידיד נפלא שלנו, לינזי גרהאם. אני בטוח שאני מייצג כאן את כל אזרחי ישראל.
President Trump had a busy day yesterday, also hosting a separate meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian head of state described their talks as good, with discussions focused on the licensing of the US Patriot air defense system to Ukraine and calls for renewed diplomatic efforts with Russia.
What do you ask? First of all, we're very thankful to the senators and we're very thankful for this discussion. The discussion was with details how to help Ukraine, and we are thankful that this bill is very important. Sanctions pressure on Russia is very important, and really it gives, it's not only about money, how to stop to finance this war, but it's also a big signal to Europe, big signal to Ukraine, big support of our people. So I'm very thankful. I hope that, God bless, we will have positive results.
So, one more question.
How was your visit overall? Have you achieved the goal? Will Ukraine receive more missiles? What was the conversation with Donald Trump?
We speak about Patriot missiles. Really, it's true. Now we spoke with the senators about it. So that Ukraine really can produce everything, which can destroy everything from Iranian Shaheeds to Russian drones and etc. We have drone interceptors, modern systems of electronic warfare. Real problem is anti-ballistic systems and anti-ballistic missiles. And of course, I shared what we need, our needs. I shared it with the president. Today, I'm very thankful to him for this meeting, and now I share it with senators, so we will try to manage it. This is a big challenge.
Both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Zelensky timed their White House visits to coincide with the funeral of late US Senator Lindsey Graham. Senate lawmakers capitalized on the moment, passing the Lindsey Graham Sanctioning Russia and Iran Act in an 82-12 vote yesterday. The legislation, originally sponsored by Graham, now moves to the House for final approval. If enacted, the bill would impose a 100% tariff on imports from countries purchasing Russian oil, gas, petroleum products, or uranium, while allowing secondary sanctions on Russian financial institutions and companies aiding energy sanctions evasion. In a late-stage amendment, Iran was also added to the bill's scope. The legislation is being fast-tracked under the banner of honoring Graham's legacy. However, critics note it builds on his interventionist reputation, as a man described by President Trump as someone who never saw a war he didn't like.
We've been working on has bipartisan support, as you saw, large bipartisan support. The president helped. We worked with the president on it, and it's taken a long period of time to get where we are, but this is the right thing to do at this time, and it's going to get a big vote before it gets out of here, and we're all happy to see that happen. We hope the House takes this up quickly and moves it across the finish line.
And this vote is a step forward. We still have a path we need to travel, but it is a profoundly solid vote for Ukraine, showing that the American people are on Ukraine's side and that we will stand with Ukraine, stopping the flow of blood money, fueling Russia's slaughter and its murderous invasion, and bringing Putin to the table for peace. That is why Senator Graham and I negotiated this bill painfully, as well as painstakingly, in great detail and complexity, with constraints on the tariff authority, but scorching sledgehammer sanctions on Russia to stop this war machine. And it will be a fitting tribute to Senator Graham when we pass it.
And as the West tightens sanctions on Russia, South Africa has sent a high-level military delegation led by National Army Chief Lieutenant General Lawrence Mbata to Moscow this week. In a statement, Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed that various agreements were reached to expand military cooperation. Discussions also included joint projects aimed at enhancing the combat readiness of the armies of both countries. While South Africa maintains a non-aligned foreign policy stance, it continues to expand ties with Moscow as a fellow BRICS member state.
Это ваш второй официальный визит в Россию. Его по традициям мы начали с церемонии официальной встречи и возложения венка к могиле неизвестного солдата. Мы признательны военно-политическому руководству Южноафриканской Республики за твердую позицию по отношению к России. С огромным удовлетворением отмечаем близость подходов к формированию мироустройства, основанных на принципах многополярности, а также урегулированию региональных конфликтов. Я второй раз посещаю все учреждения сухопутных войск. И сейчас возвращаясь к их отличным взаимоотношениям между южноафриканцами и русскими, мы благодарны за то, что мы становимся стратегическим партнером, который высоко ценится Россией, потому что это отношения, рожденные очень много лет назад. И мы уверены, что на будущее поколение вперед они также это поймут. Я хочу сказать, что Россия для нас, особенно сухопутные войска, это военная дипломатия, взаимодействие между военными ведомствами остается очень важным столпом взаимоотношений.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has rejected claims that Russia is preparing for mobilization, referring to the mandatory calling up of reservists and civilians to replenish battlefield losses. Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council Dmitry Medvedev dismissed the rumors as disinformation, peddled by Russia's enemies to destabilize the country ahead of upcoming parliamentary elections scheduled for September.
Попытки врага нести всякую пургу о том, что в стране готовится мобилизация, не более чем лживая провокация. Это часть пропаганды в преддверии выборов. Они стараются, естественно, дестабилизировать обстановку в нашей стране, создавать негативные настроения. Это проявляется в разных моментах, но вот даже в ряде социальных сетей распространяются публикации, в которых граждан агитируют подписать контракт с вооруженными силами с такой формулировкой: «Не жди мобилизации, иди служить за деньги». Понятно, что это проплаченная история, или история, вброшенная врагом, но это лишь один из примеров. Хочу просто обратить на это внимание полномочных представителей президента в федеральных округах, глав регионов, представителей Министерства обороны и других ведомств. Еще раз специально подчеркну, в мобилизации нет никакой необходимости. Это вранье врага, который сам испытывает дефицит людского ресурса, воевать там просто некому, а своих граждан они отлавливают как свиней, бьют и бросают в автобусы. Вот с чем это все связано. Поэтому вести разъяснительную работу крайне необходимо для того, чтобы люди понимали истинную ситуацию. Наши же граждане, которые заключают контракты о прохождении военной службы, настоящие патриоты, люди, которые считают своим личным долгом защиту Родины от врага и готовы сделать все ради победы России в специальной военной операции.
Turning our focus to the US-Iran war, Iranian military spokesperson Ebrahim Zolfagari has responded to President Trump's earlier statements that America will use frozen Iranian funds to pay for any damages inflicted by Tehran on shipping vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Zolfagari warned that Iran will prevent the passage of any vessel belonging to companies and countries that approve of the president's plan.
رئیس جمهور آمریکا در پی اقدامات تجاوزکارانه و تلاش مستمر برای بی‌ثبات‌سازی منطقه اعلام کرده است خسارت شناورهایی که در جریان جنگ تحمیلی علیه ایران اسلامی به دلیل ایجاد ناامنی توسط ارتش آمریکا و تخلف در عبور از مسیر غیرقانونی و ناامن جنوب تنگه هرمز آسیب دیدن را از محل دارایی‌های بلوکه شده ایران پرداخت خواهد کرد. ضمن هشدار به رئیس جمهور جنایتکار آمریکا در خصوص تبعات این اقدام غیرقانونی به همه شرکت‌ها و کشورهایی که از پیشنهاد ترامپ استقبال نمایند و از دارایی‌های بلوکه شده ایران تحت این عنوان استفاده کنند اعلام می‌داریم از این به بعد نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران اجازه تردد به هیچ یک از شناورهای آنها از تنگه هرمز را نخواهند داد.
Stay connected to our Love World Network channels as we continue to bring you the latest. And now moving on to more international developments. Dr. Anthony Fauci is scheduled to appear before a Senate hearing later today, where he, as the former head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during the COVID-19 pandemic, is expected to be held to account for his role as policy craftsman during the pandemic. The hearing comes just 2 days after Senator Rand Paul released Dr. Fauci's COVID-19 diary entries. The diary consists of over 1,000 pages of near daily entries and exposes inconsistencies with Fauci's actions during the pandemic. In the diary, Fauci reportedly appears to take credit for recommending lockdowns and school closures, contradicting his public statements in early 2020, where he claimed he did not recommend such measures at the time. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer warned that former President Biden's pardon for Fauci doesn't cover his testimony this week, and if he continues to lie, he must be held accountable. And major uncontained wildfires continue to ravage predominantly Western countries, including France, Spain, the United States, and Canada. While environmentalists and politicians attempted to blame climate change for the fires, including the 92 active blazes in the US and the over 889 active fires in Canada, France disproved the theory after the Prime Minister reported this week that French authorities have arrested or detained 162 people since July 6th on suspicion of arson or negligence linked to wildfires. The fires have drawn scrutiny, with online commentators questioning the locations of the blazes in southwestern France and near Madrid, which conveniently affect areas where large data centers or related infrastructure projects were planned, or they were under discussion, raising suspicions of deliberate land clearing or arson tied to development interests.
Ça n'est pas fini. Le feu n'est pas
not
fixé.
over. The fire is not contained. It has been repeated since the beginning of this fire that this behavior is completely unprecedented and erratic, that is generating its own storms.
Japan has lifted a tsunami warning after a powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck Kumamoto Prefecture on Japan's southern island of Kyushu Tuesday afternoon. Reports indicate that at least 13 people were killed in the quake, with Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi stating that rescue teams are in a race against time. She further warned of potential aftershocks and landslides, cautioning residents in the hardest hit regions to remain on high alert over the next few days.
We have already confirmed extensive damage, including casualties, collapsed buildings, damaged roads, and fires. I would first like to extend my deepest sympathies to all those affected by the disaster. Today, a task force for emergency disaster response, headed by me, has been established. Following a request from the governor of Kumamoto Prefecture for disaster relief assistance, the self-defense forces have begun operations in the affected areas with about 3,600 personnel. To those in areas that experienced strong shaking, the risk of building collapses and landslides remains high. Please avoid entering dangerous areas and take all precautions to ensure your safety. Over the next week or so, please remain alert for the possibility of earthquakes with a maximum seismic intensity of 7. Power outages have occurred in some areas. I ask everyone to take action to protect themselves, including evacuating to a safe location, while also taking precautions against heat stroke. The Takaichi administration will do our utmost. We will respond with the full force of the government, prioritizing human lives above all else.
We'll be back shortly after the break. Stay tuned for more international developments.
Feasting on messages from the Pastor Chris Digital Library just got more exciting. Experience the transformative power of God's Word like never before with life-changing teachings by the man of God, Pastor Chris, on the Pastor Chris Digital Library, now available in all of the most widely spoken languages of the world. Dutch.
Christus in jou, de hoop van glorie. Vanaf dat moment, wanneer Christus zijn intrek neemt in de kamers van jouw hart.
Spanish.
Vamos a usar el nombre de Jesús. Expulsar demonios.
French.
Je pourrais vous montrer plusieurs autres domaines importants dans la Bible.
Arabic.
لا يمكنك تمجيد الله بجسد مريض.
Mandarin.
白衣的人站在他们旁边。当耶稣升天，两个天使出现在门徒注视耶稣的升天。
Russian.
Вот почему вокруг так много убийств. В мире так много насилия в мире.
German.
Tat es in Christus. Das habe ich gerade gelesen. In Christus Jesus. Tat es in Christus.
You can now access these powerful teachings culled from the Healing Stream's live healing services with Pastor Chris, with titles such as Who is in Your House? Where is Jesus? What is the Purpose of Healing? Knowing God's Plan for You, Part 1 and 2. Why did Jesus come? Using the name of Jesus. He has given us His glory, the benediction, and others in your preferred language, making it easier to understand, receive, and walk in the light of the Word. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Subscribe to access these messages in your preferred language and experience the miraculous. Download the Pastor Chris Digital Library app today from the Love World App Store at www.loveworldappstore.com. Pastor Chris Digital Library, a place of solutions.
Africa cannot keep relying on external aid and must urgently tackle its water crisis. UN Under-Secretary General Cleaver Gatete told AU foreign ministers in Addis Ababa on Monday. Addressing the 49th Executive Council session themed on water and sanitation for Agenda 2063, Gatete said more than 400 million Africans lack basic drinking water and over 700 million lack safe sanitation. These gaps undermine health, jobs, and development. Gatete called for integrated water, energy, food planning, stronger domestic financing, and faster rollout of the African Continental Free Trade Area to address the matter.
I'm particularly encouraged that this Council is considering implementation of the African Union theme of the year 2026, assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of the Agenda 2063. But allow me to first reflect on the current global situation. Indeed, Excellencies, we are convening at a time of considerable global uncertainty. growth remains subdued and uneven. Trade tensions, geopolitical fragmentation, conflicts, including the conflict in the Middle East, climate shocks, declining development finance, and high debt servicing costs continue to impact investment and development prospects. Although inflation has eased in several countries, the cost of food, energy, and finance remains persistently high. Given the present realities, it is clear that Africa cannot rely indefinitely on external financing to transform its economies. Africa must finance more of its development from within. This is why ECA continues to promote domestic resource mobilization as the foundation of Africa's economic transformation. We are helping member states to strengthen tax administration, digitize revenue systems, combat illicit financial flows, deepen domestic capital markets, mobilize innovative financing, and build stronger fiscal institutions to finance industrial development.
Ethiopian Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheus opened the session by urging the continent to position itself as a strategic player in a rapidly transforming global order. Speaking at the start of the two-day meeting, Timotheus identified geopolitical competition, technological disruption, and intensifying contests over resources as the key forces driving profound changes in international structures and relations. He stressed that Africa, home to some of the world's fastest-growing economies, must actively shape global outcomes rather than remain a passive participant.
We are meeting at a defining moment in international affairs. The foundations of the global order are undergoing profound transformation. The assumptions that shaped international relations for decades are being shaken. Things are in a flux. The events we are witnessing these days go beyond the daily headlines. We are living in an era destined for the history books. Geopolitical competition, technological disruption, climate pressures, and growing contestation over strategic resources are creating a new international dispensation. These changes have a direct bearing on our continent. We need to seize the moment to actively shape the contours of the new reality. We must become a strategic actor capable of providing African solutions to global challenges. The African Union has a central role in this endeavor. Our Union must serve as the institution through which Africa articulates its priorities and advances its interests. The Union should emerge as a credible and authentic voice of Africa. Despite the challenge we face, Africa's progress is real and undeniable. Of the top 10 fastest growing economies for 2026, 8 countries are from our continent. In economic and demographic terms, Africa is destined to be the engine of global growth in the second half of the 21st century. Ethiopia views the African Union as the indispensable mechanism for collective action and a shared future. The Union is the institutional custodian of continental unity and solidarity. Excellencies, this session provides us with an important opportunity to reflect on the reforms necessary to ensure that the African Union remains fit for purpose in addressing the challenge of our time.
And now let's take a recap of today's headlines. Kremlin dismisses military mobilization claims as an enemy plot to destabilize Russia's upcoming September elections.
Попытки врага нести всякую пургу о том, что в стране готовится мобилизация, не более чем лживая провокация.
Fauci's COVID-19 era diary exposes contradictions ahead of Senate hearing. Japan lifts tsunami warning after a 7.1 earthquake kills 13 in Kumamoto.
We have already confirmed extensive damage, including casualties, collapsed buildings, damaged roads, and fires. I would first like to extend my deepest sympathies to all those affected by the disaster.
Wildfires tear through Western countries as France arrests 162 arson suspects, raising questions over data center land clearing.
Ça n'est pas fini. Le feu n'est
It's
pas
not
fixé.
over. The fire is not contained. It has been repeated since the beginning of this fire that this behavior is completely unprecedented and erratic.
And that's a wrap for your midday news updates. From myself, Marika Schroeder, and the team here in Cape Town. Thank you for tuning in to Allen 24 International. Until next time, goodbye.